Hello, and welcome to Six Figure Authors, the show that helps you take your writing career to the next level. I'm Lindsay Baroker, and I'm here with my two co-hosts.
I'm Joe Lallo.
And I'm Andrea Pearson.
And today we're interviewing Evan Gow, the founder of StoryOrigin, which is an author service that they facilitate the delivering of ebooks, organizing group promos, newsletter swaps, managing art teams, and they've actually got quite a bit going if you check out their site. And we're going to be asking Evan, because they're growing quickly, and I assume he sees a lot of data through his site, for kind of some best practices for authors based on what he's seeing going on through his site. And I guess that's a good intro for me. Evan, do you want to describe yourself and StoryOrigin further?
Yeah, no, I think you hit on all the things there. Just the what I would say is, so StoryOrigin is sort of a marketing tool and a community, and the three focuses are helping you increase your sales, helping you build your mailing list, and helping you find reviewers, whether those are for your ebooks or your audiobooks.
Okay, and what motivated you to start this service? You guys I know I've come across a couple of people who are using it already, but I think you're fairly new still.
Yeah, that's right. So I originally launched StoryOrigin back in April of last year. So it's been a little over a year and a half now that it's been available. And what got me started was I wrote short stories back in high school. So I've always had an interest in writing, and then got really interested in entrepreneurship in college, and was sort of looking at what I wanted to do next and after my last role, and decided that it was finally time for me to pursue entrepreneurship and wanted to combine those passions, entrepreneurship and writing. And so went and talked to a bunch of self-published authors, sort of figured out the landscape of, there's all these different tools doing all these different things, and you've got 5 different platforms to manage all of these different links and delivery and all of that stuff. And so I figured, I'll build the place that brings it all together.
That's awesome. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of benefit that the site offers. I was looking at it, I was like, this has pretty much everything. So my question for you, I'm always interested in the, where the nuts and bolts, where the rubber meets the road, and the sort of thing that catches people off guard. So for you, for example, what about this service is something that has happened that you did not expect? Like something like working with authors, or something that's caught you off guard or surprised you in general?
I think one thing that is kind of surprising is that it's not just that you can write a good book, and just get discovered because you're a great writer, and that it's just going to take off, right? It takes a lot of time and effort into building your audience and building your rapport with your readers, and it always takes so much longer than you're going to expect. And I've experienced that myself with building StoryOrigin, right? When I released it back in April of last year, I was like, this is gonna, just take off immediately, right? And it certainly wasn't the case. But as I've added new features and sort of really made it that one-stop shop, it's now accelerating at a faster pace every week. So that's really exciting. But yeah, it's, everything always takes longer than you expect.
Yeah, that's something I've noticed with companies. I've been approached, because we've been indie authors for a while, and I've been approached by new business owners with these really good ideas, but it just takes so much longer than they expect to get it off the ground and running. And sadly, a lot of them they're not able to, go past that first year, or even just 6 months,
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what is the future of StoryOrigins? What vision do you have for its growth?
Yeah, so I really want to make StoryOrigin that sort of one-stop shop for authors to, do their marketing and discovery, right? And those are sort of the 2 things that I like to focus on the most when I'm thinking about, okay, what feature am I going to prioritize next? But sometimes, it's also just how can I save authors time, right? What are you doing today in a spreadsheet that takes you a bunch of time every day to update and isn't, synced across with all of your other, author business related activities that you have going on, right? And so how can I help you break out of those spreadsheets and pull everything together in a more seamless manner?
I think what I've seen people doing who are using your company is basically arranging multi-author promos and giving away free books to build their mailing list. So we'd like to ask some questions about that, since especially this last couple of years, there's been so much emphasis on Facebook ads and Amazon ads and BookBub ads, and you're just gonna have to spend thousands of dollars to launch your book, and that's how it is. But I don't think that's true. I mean, if you want to launch into the top 100 on Amazon, maybe, but just to have a successful launch, there's certainly other things that you can do. So I'm curious, what do you see people doing as being effective right now for, I guess, building a list and getting the word out about their books?
Yeah, so I would definitely recommend that people have a reader magnet. And for those listeners that aren't familiar with that term, a reader magnet is typically a somewhere between 5,000 and 15,000 word short story prequel to your book or your series. Of course, that doesn't have to be a reader magnet, but it's essentially something that you can give to a reader for free whenever they sign up to your mailing list. And that's a good way of providing the reader with some value to sign up to your mailing list, rather than just saying, hey, sign up for my mailing list so that I can market things at you, right? So you're starting off that relationship by giving them some value. In that, that's been a strategy for a long time, and it continues to be effective in doing group promotions and cross promotions with other authors to drive traffic to those reader magnets, where you can have a single landing page that lists all of the authors' reader magnets on StoryOrigin, and then everyone sort of works to promote that single landing page, and you all build your mailing list together. That's still really effective. And then, you can use that mailing list for a lot of things, and it'll be valuable to you throughout your entire author career, right? You were talking about spending thousands of dollars on ads. The cost to deliver an email to readers continues to decrease over time, right? Versus if you look at like advertising on Facebook or Amazon, CPCs are rising across the board. But the cost of actually delivering an email generally is tending to go down.
Okay, so really fast, StoryOrigin, you handle delivery of that reader magnet, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
And you handle like the tech side and making sure that it, all the customer support and all that, right?
Yeah. So the reader will get an email, and it actually comes straight from my personal email address. So if they have any issues, they can just reply directly to me, and I will be there to answer that email. But honestly, I don't have to answer that many customer support emails for people that run into trouble with downloading books, because StoryOrigin's download process for getting ebooks on your Kindle or your Nook or whatever your e-reader is pretty seamless. You can get it via email as a direct download to whatever device you're on, or you can get a short download link if you just want to open it on a different device than you are currently using.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Email, that's overwhelming. Having it potentially go, having so many people potentially respond.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You would definitely expect that, but most people get it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so as someone on the inside, since you're kind of on the inside of all of that stuff, what sort of reader magnet have you seen work best? So like a short story, a novella, or something else?
I would definitely suggest that you use a short story. And this is honestly coming from more of my conversations with authors who use StoryOrigin, and not necessarily from some extensive data analysis that I've done, but from speaking with authors, and what's worked for them is typically a 5,000 to 15,000 word short story prequel to their book or their series.
Okay, that's actually interesting. Do you know if those authors, and I think this is one of my future questions actually, do you know if they write something specifically for that?
Yeah, they will generally, you know, I've when I'm talking to authors, a lot of them will say, "Oh, you know, what I did was I took a week and I put I put together a story that was a prequel to my book, and it didn't take me nearly as long as I was expecting." And so it's not necessarily, you don't need to put in a ton of effort, but I will say, you still need to make sure, even though you're giving this away for free, that it's really polished, right? You want to make sure that you've got a book cover. You want to make sure that you've got it edited, because at the end of the day, for a lot of readers, this is going to be their first introduction to you, their first impression of you as a writer. And so if your first impression is a bad book cover and poor editing, they're not going to want to read the books in that series. And so making sure that's still polished, even though you're giving it away for free, is still incredibly important.
Do you think, because I often have used the short story, like a background story or a prequel novella, prequella, as I mangle it often. And I find that works really well when I'm, doing it at the back of the book and trying to get them onto my list.
Yep.
I'm curious for more of a cold person, that's just, they have to give their email address, I assume, to get the story, and they don't yet have any familiarity with your work. Is there any challenges there that you're seeing to get them to sign up for that?
No, not particularly. I will definitely say that I think that, doing a sort of side story to your main book is something that works really, really well at the back of a book, where a reader might want to delve more deeply into a character's particular arc, but using that as a intro to readers who have never read the main book, they're not going to have as much familiar with the characters. And so doing a prequel is what I would generally recommend as, what you would give out in a cross promotion, where it's likely that a reader has never come across your books or your writing before.
Right. We should probably mention that I would think it goes without saying, but actually I don't think it does go without saying, that you should probably do a complete story, not like, here's the first 3 chapters and a cliffhanger, and you'll have to buy the book to see what happens next.
Right. Yes. And that's what I say when I say that I'm recommending like a 5,000 to 15,000 word short story. I recommend that as an easy way of creating something that you can give away to readers for free. Because yes, the authors that do just a preview or sample of their book that's 3 or 5 chapters, a lot of times readers will just be disappointed by that cliffhanger, right? So having that complete story for them for signing up to your mailing list is important, especially because you don't want angry readers marking your emails as spam.
Right. Like, I think authors think it sounds like a good idea, make them want to read more. But, if you can do it in such a way that like it's a complete story, but still maybe there's some unanswered questions that will.
Right. You have to have that cliffhanger to hook them into reading book 1.
So for somebody who's a little newer, how are they going to find promotions to participate in? And I know this is part of your site, is kind of helping people get together like with others in their genre.
Right. Yeah. So with StoryOrigin, you when you sign up, you'll be brought to your dashboard homepage, and you'll see 2 big buttons. You'll find newsletter swaps, and you'll find group promotions. And those newsletter swaps are direct one-to-one cross promotions with other authors, where essentially I'll agree to mention one of your books in my next email campaigns, and you can agree to mention one of my books in your next email campaigns. And so we're cross-promoting each other individually. Or you can hit that group promotions button, and you can find group giveaways where essentially all of the authors in that group promotion are promoting a single landing page. And those newsletter swaps and those group promotions have tags on them. So you can sort by, okay, I want something that combines sci-fi and space opera, right? So you can target those specific categories for group promotions or newsletter swaps that you want to be a part of.
All right, that's incredibly useful, because a lot of times, like, the advice we'll give is, oh, well, here's something to entice people to sign up to your newsletter, but then people have to find out about that thing. So, like,
Right.
this is definitely a useful tool. Now, when we're talking about the thing that's, your reader magnet, a lot of people, particularly who are starting off and don't have a whole lot to work with, might want to be trying to build their library at the same time they're trying to put together something like this. So
Yeah.
if someone's inclined to use a free book or novella to entice newsletter signups, would you suggest that they use something that is exclusively available via the newsletter, or could you use something that is also available in the store?
You could certainly use something that's available in the store, and I've seen a lot of authors that do that. What they'll do is they'll have their reader magnet on StoryOrigin, but it will also be a 99-cent book on Amazon or somewhere else. And I haven't heard from authors that I've talked to about it, and I've sort of combed through authors that do both or do one only. There's not really a huge differentiator there in terms of outcomes that they've seen. The one thing that I would say is, with a story at the back of your book, I would recommend that you maybe do that as a newsletter exclusive, that you can only get this story if you join my newsletter, right? Because then you're talking about readers who have read your book, know your book, want to learn more, and they want, and so those are incredibly valuable readers, right? We talk about, readers that you get through signups at the back of your book versus readers that come through, sort of cross promotions, where they're seeing you for the first time. Those readers who are coming from the back of your book are always going to be your most valuable. And so getting them onto your newsletter is incredibly valuable. And so doing something as a newsletter exclusive instead of saying, hey, you can also buy this for 99 cents on Amazon, at the end of the day, you'll get more value out of being able to tell that person when book 2, book 3, book 4 came out, because they were a part of your mailing list.
I've noticed personally that I have readers who will buy everything I put out rather than join a newsletter list. They'd rather pay the money than join a newsletter list. And so when I've done exclusive content, I've had better results. And you're nodding your head for the listeners.
I mean, it'll definitely happen, right? Some people are just incredibly anti wanting to sign up for anything, and in a small percentage of people will be that way.
Yeah, that's me. I'm like, I don't want to join another newsletter list. But there are some authors, who I would be on if they had them, if they actually
Right.
did those exclusive stories and things like that,
Right. And those authors who you would sign up to their list, because everyone's got that hesitancy to signing up to another thing. And so for those people that are willing to sign up to that thing, that means they really do love your work and want to learn about everything that you've got coming out, which is why they're so valuable to be on your mailing list.
Exactly. Okay, so I have a question about the site itself. What does the back end of it look like for authors? Is there a place for authors to discuss events and promotions, or is it run mainly over email?
So when you go and you browse through the newsletter swaps and group promotions, you can apply to those newsletter swaps and group promotions just through StoryOrigin. No sort of communication necessary. But in the event that you do need to communicate with the organizer, or you need to communicate with the person that you're swapping with, or with participants in a group promo, you can email each other. There's no messaging platform on StoryOrigin, and I've sort of purposely avoided that, because most people have too many different channels that they already get messages through, whether it's like Facebook or WhatsApp or email, etc. And I don't want you to have to feel like you've got another messaging service that you have to handle when you're on StoryOrigin. So stuff just goes through email, which a lot of authors are already really comfortable dealing with.
So I know for a lot of folks, actually, I think I first saw you guys because Carolyn Gockel, I think she introduced us. It was using your service for her sci-fi and urban fantasy. And I noticed she would post like on K-boards or in Facebook groups, hey, I'm doing this promo through StoryOrigin, sign up if you're interested. So I'm curious how much, like right now, if I was going to go hop in there for my new urban fantasy series and try to find people to do a group promo with, would I really need to go out there and get people, or is there a pretty good base maybe for your first couple? I assume eventually you're kind of, like have exhausted the pool maybe of options in there right now.
Yeah. So StoryOrigin is growing very, very quickly. And so, I just got someone who left a review on StoryOrigin the other day who said, I joined StoryOrigin just like a couple of months ago, and there was, I was a little bit worried because it was newer and I didn't think that there would be as many people on, and I started finding people. And then over the last just, couple of months, there's been an explosion of other authors who have come onto the platform. And so they, there's the pool is definitely continuing to grow. And so even if you, came on today and you swapped with every single person on the platform, if you came back a month from now, you would find a bunch of other new people to swap with or do group promotions with.
That's good. I know one of the challenges is sort of finding people, and then also for newer authors, or like if you're doing like me and jumping into a new genre, and maybe you're starting a new mailing list, and you've got a small list, and I feel like if you hop into like a Facebook group and like, hey, I got 10,000 space opera fans right here, who wants to swap? Everybody's like, yeah, sign me up, I'm ready. But if somebody's got like 25, that nobody's gonna be jumping to like get announced to their list. Is that, I don't know how visible that is on StoryOrigin, or do you have any tips for maybe authors with a smaller list?
Yeah. So when you are running newsletter swaps on StoryOrigin, you essentially will post your mailing list, and you will post basically the size of your mailing list, your open rate and your click rate. And if you're using MailerLite or MailChimp, you can integrate with those services, and StoryOrigin will automatically pull those stats from those services, and you'll get a little verified check mark so that other authors that are potentially requesting swaps with you, or that you're requesting swaps with other authors, can actually know that you're not just making those numbers up. But going to, and so that's what you'll see when you're browsing through newsletter swaps on StoryOrigin, is basically the dates of the campaigns that other authors have going out, and then what the size of their list is. And then you can actually see when you've run swaps with other authors, you can go and check what past swaps they've done through StoryOrigin and see how many clicks that they've sent to those authors. So there's there's transparency in the community about how many that you're actually sending out those links and promoting other authors. But to the point of you're a new author with a small list, how do you get started? A lot of group promotions on StoryOrigin, it's up to individual organizers whether or not they want to sort of set a minimum list size for people that are applying to those group promotions. But for the most part, organizers on StoryOrigin don't set minimum mailing list sizes. And so you can just go ahead and start joining group giveaways. And by the end of your first month on StoryOrigin, depending on how active you are and what genre it is and how big the group promotion is, you could see anywhere between, a few dozen signups to literally hundreds of signups in that first month. And so, you're quickly able to go from, a small list to a relatively, sizable list for someone that's just starting out, and to then be able to start running those new newsletter swaps and sort of demonstrating that you know how to do that.
All right, that's super useful. I'm actually going to have a question about that sort of thing in a little bit, but
Oh, awesome.
For now, thanks to things like GDPR and the like, we learned that there are incorrect ways to get signups for your newsletter, and there are things you're supposed to be doing to get a valid sign up for your newsletter, and you can get in trouble if you don't do them. So are there any tactics that you're aware of that people should avoid when doing these sort of promotions and swaps?
Yeah. So, with a lot of times, people who are new to newsletter swaps think that a newsletter swap means that somehow you and I are going to trade our mailing lists, and I'm going to take your subscribers and I'm going to add them to my mailing list, and then I'm going to email those people, and you're going to take my subscribers. That would definitely not be kosher with GDPR. Don't do that. What a newsletter swap is simply I'm agreeing to mention your book and my next campaign to my subscribers, and you're agreeing to mention my book and your next campaign to your subscribers. And so we're not actually sharing any contact information. When you have your mailing list posted on StoryOrigin, only those aggregate statistics are shared with other authors, like the total mailing list size and open and click rate. None of that subscriber information is shared with other authors. So, so as far as newsletter swaps go, those are totally fine, GDPR compliant. And then when it comes to reader magnets, StoryOrigin requires that readers click that they are consenting and understand that they are joining an author's mailing list in order to get that book, right? So if you have a reader magnet posted, even if it's not on StoryOrigin, if you're like hosting it through a Google form and you've got it, on Google Drive or Dropbox or something, and you want to do all this stuff manually yourself, definitely ensure that you are requiring that subscribers understand that they are consenting to join your mailing list when they are requesting that free copy.
So I like this feature where they actually can find out how many clicks they got for their book from, like, if you emailed, or you can find out how many clicks your book got if they emailed.
Yeah.
Because that's something until now we've just been trusting if the author uses tracking links or affiliate links or something and tells us, or if it's a big enough author, sometimes you can see your sales ranking go up on Amazon if it's that kind of thing. But it is curious. Now I'm thinking best practices are probably not to send out a lot of books in one newsletter. I've certainly seen when I've done like 3 that number 1 gets like easily 3 times as many clicks as the third one, even if, all other things being somewhat equal.
Right. Yeah. And so that is totally transparent on StoryOrigin. So when you, so if I go and I want to request a swap with you through StoryOrigin, I can go to your mailing list and I can see the past swaps that you've done on StoryOrigin, the past campaigns that you've set out. And if I see that you include, 15 books, newsletter swaps in your past campaigns that you've, integrated with StoryOrigin, I'm probably and you only send, 3 clicks to each of those books, even though your mailing list is 25,000 people, I'm much less likely to want to request doing a newsletter swap with you. Or if you request a newsletter swap with me, I'm much less likely to accept that request, right? StoryOrigin always gives you the power of accepting or declining those requests. And so it's definitely valuable to authors to think about, okay, how many swaps do I want to have in this campaign? Because I want to make sure that I'm really actually sending traffic and helping people out, because that's what it's all about, right? You're actually helping each other.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out how to do it when I launched my last series, because I'm not a big emailer. I usually only send one when I release a new book. And I had 15 people that wanted to promote mine if I promoted theirs. And I ended up writing a short story that went out over 5 days. And I put some, I put their books at the end of each of the emails. And I'm not sure if the fans were super stoked that they had to have it broken up for 5 days, but that was at least a solution to, because they were reading the story along, so they were opening the emails. So I feel like I got pretty decent clicks on that for other folks.
Yeah,
I want to give as good as I get,
Right. No, I definitely love that approach of doing, and it's also like a serial approach to an email sequence, right? Where if a reader reads the first one, they're going to want to read the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth email in that sequence, right? Versus if I'm getting 5 disparate emails from you over the course of 5 days and they're not linked together in any shape or form, I'm much less likely to open that second, third, fourth, fifth email from you in a row.
The only thing depressing about that was I found out just how much of my stuff goes into people's junk folders or something, because they'd be like, I got 1 and 3 and 5. I need parts 2 and 4. And I was like, well, shoot, this is a little depressing.
Check your spam folder. But then that's good, right? Because then you can tell those people that did email you, hey, add me to your contacts. Or if they replied to that email, those replies to your emails are going to help boost your sender reputation as well. So it's having that engagement with your audience is actually valuable to you, even if it's just that, hey, I can't find this thing, right? So yeah.
All right, so I'm curious, we didn't actually specifically say it, maybe it's obvious, but authors should look to do this kind of swapping or these joint promotions, with other authors in their genre. Does it even go deeper than that? Because I feel like I've seen maybe a few people go like themed, like we're doing Halloween urban fantasy in October. Is there a lot of that? And do you see that as being pretty successful?
Definitely around holidays, there will be a lot of group promotions that are definitely themed, especially during Halloween. There were just an absolutely huge number of Halloween themed group promotions. And I, if your genre matches those the themes of those holidays, I would certainly recommend that you join them, right? Whether if you are a thriller horror novelist, definitely Halloween is a good time to try to engage with your readers. If you're a sweet romance or vacation romance novelist, Christmas books will definitely, a lot of readers have a lot of free time over the holidays and will read a lot during the holidays. So that's definitely a good time to like be a part of or run your own sort of themed group promotion.
All right. Now, one of the things I'm curious about, and this is a problem that I think a lot of us run into, when you find something that works, the tendency is to keep doing it as much as you can because it works. But we quickly learn that even the best advertising things like BookBug, for example, they have diminishing returns if you use them over and over again, or if you use them too quickly. What's your opinion on like the frequency that someone should be doing something like a cross promotion? Should they be rare?
I don't think that they should be rare per se. I do think that you do need to exercise moderation in doing cross promotions, because like I was saying earlier, if you're doing 15 newsletter swaps and you've got 15 books in your email and you've got 10 group promotions, you're going to overwhelm your readers, and people just aren't going to want to click on anything, right? But I do think that being consistent in your cross promotions is actually valuable, right? Because then you become a place where readers are looking to open your email because you become their source of recommendations, right? You become the source of, where do I go to find a new book? Oh, I'm gonna make sure to open that next email from you because you tell me, what's out there and what's new. And so I can find stuff through you. And so it both helps provide content for your email, which can sometimes be a struggle if you're not sure what you want to write about. And it also makes you that place that readers go to find their next book.
And I'm also going to make a comment about that transparency thing. I've heard of authors sending, newsletter swaps to one email address, just to be able to show that they've got this campaign that went out, and that would definitely not work with StoryOrigin.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So, but on the flip side, for authors who are panicking right now about opens and clicks, what is the average you're seeing, and how can somebody get better results so that they can be accepted more often by other authors?
It's all I would say that there's no right way to do it, right? Some authors are willing to have a huge mailing list and have lower open and click rates. And generally, a lot of email service providers sort of you pay per the number of subscribers that are on your list. And some authors are willing to say, hey, I don't care if I'm paying, over $50 a month for my mailing list, even though my open rates and click rates are low, because I want to make sure that even those readers who aren't opening my emails today, that they might open one in the future. And so you might, want to have a huge mailing list, and you don't mind if your open and click rates are low. a lot of authors will choose, hey, I want to be able to stay on the free tier for as long as possible. So I'm going to clean my mailing list super, super frequently. And I'm only going to have the highly engaged readers who are opening or clicking on every single link in my email. And there's no one is better than the other, right? Both those mailing lists, if you're doing a newsletter swap with one of those people, both of them may offer you the same number of clicks. And it's, you can go and you can look at the past history of clicks that they've sent to other swaps. And I think that's more indicative than the open or click rates or list size that you see.
Okay, so, and then what would you consider to be a bad open and click for, say, a large newsletter list or, say, a small one?
Yeah, I would say bad would be something like 15% open rate and something like a 1 or 2% click rate. That would be pretty bad. That's a very, very good indication that you have a lot of subscribers that you should probably remove from the list and who aren't active anymore, because some authors are willing to pay for those, but I wouldn't personally recommend just for show having a big list, right? I would care much more about having the most highly engaged readers.
Yeah, that's interesting. I've got two lists. I've got one that I email every month, and because have you heard of Sendy before?
Yeah, I'm familiar with Sendy.
Okay, I use Sendy, so I get charged per send rather than per email. And so I keep every subscriber pretty much unless they want to be removed. And
Right,
I email
okay.
them like once a month. And then I've got a list that I email every single week. And so the one that I email
Okay.
every week has really good opens.
Mm-hmm.
And then the one that I email once a month doesn't, but
Yep.
But again, you never know why somebody stopped opening an email, and you never know why they want to start opening again. So,
well, the other thing that we haven't talked about is frequency. Like, how frequently should you send an email, and how does that affect your open and your click rates? This is, StoryOrigin is not an email service provider. You can't send emails through StoryOrigin, but I've talked to a lot of authors about, basically I asked the question, have you experimented with different frequency rates in sending your emails, and how has that affected your open and click rates? And I got back quite a few responses from authors who were saying, yeah, I tried the monthly thing, I tried the bi-weekly thing, I tried the weekly thing, tried a daily thing. And by far, the authors that experimented between those set of options found that their open rates and click rates actually increased with the frequency that they sent their emails, right? There's definitely a point of diminishing returns, right? So sending daily, your click rates are gonna go low, but weekly or bi-weekly, you're probably gonna get higher open and click rates than you would with monthly, just because I will even personally sometimes get an email, I'm subscribed to a bunch of mailing lists. I'll get emails once a week, and I'll open an email and I'll say, man, when was the last time that I got an email from this person? And I got an email from them last week, and I opened it and I looked at it, but a week is sometimes so much longer than you think it is when it comes to email, because you're getting, dozens of emails every single day. And so that was, 200 or 300 emails ago to me was 1 week ago. So if you're sending once a month, people might just simply forget that they were even a part of the list. And so doing it more frequently actually allows them to remember and who you are, why they signed up, and why they want to stay engaged.
yeah, that makes sense. And I mean, because I teach newsletter marketing, so my clients, I'm always like, you should be emailing every single week.
Yeah.
Some people just really do go, they really have a hard time with that. So I'm like, at least once a month. If you go less than once a month, then you're going to run into big problems. And I think Lindsay had a question on frequency as well. So if you can go ahead with that, Lindsay.
All right. Well, I was going to let Joe go next, but I was just curious, since you were talking about this, because I know a lot of authors, myself included, every time you sit down to write one, you're like, okay, I'm going to tell them about my dogs, and then I'm working on a new story. And I often try to write like an interview with a character or something, so I have some
Yeah.
free thing to send.
Right.
But for people who are struggling, especially like I don't do weekly, I
Yeah.
maybe monthly when I'm working on a series, you
Right.
know. But I'm curious what you suggest for authors, besides just because I feel like if they're just sharing other people's books, that's going to be not as exciting to the reader as more about them and their world and that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So I would say that some good things, if you're doing weekly, I think you hit on those main things, right? You can share sort of personal life updates. You can share your writing updates. You can share books from other authors. At the end of the day, it sort of comes down to two things that you want to do with your audience, right? One is you want to build rapport with them, and that means getting them to know you as a human being, which is really, really difficult through the internet and really difficult through text. And so, if you can include a picture of your dog, or you can, talk about something that happened recently, people are just going to feel that they understand you and your life better as a human being. And having that rapport with readers is going to make them feel, special, which is what you want. And then the second part is sort of becoming that source of recommendations and becoming sort of their go-to place where they want to engage in and find out about new books. And so those are the two things that I would recommend, building the rapport, and then doing those cross promotions and stuff, so you've got something fresh to bring to them. And you can also do recommendations of other books, or recommendations of movies you've watched, or what happened on the last episode of that TV show you were watching on Netflix. Don't give out spoilers, but
Okay, so you've kind of hinted around at this a little bit, but just really quickly, how many other authors and books do you recommend someone promote in each given newsletter? Is it possible to share too much?
Yeah, I think it's definitely possible to share too much. I was saying sort of 15 as an extreme. I would personally recommend saying 2 or 3 is probably a good average. You can certainly do more, and some authors will do 4 or 6. But I would recommend 2 or 3 sort of newsletter swaps, where you're just sharing a single individual book that an author might be interested in, and then maybe doing 1 to 3 group promotions that you're sharing, where there's going to be a whole list of books that authors can go and check out. And those and it sort of just depends on how many group promotions do you want to have in an email when you've got 6 newsletter swaps set up, right? Maybe that week you are not sending out the group promotion. You wait to send that one out in your next email.
All right. So, we as you said, there's transparency for sort of the mailing list that you're offering up and the activity you've had, and every now and then someone in a group promo or a cross promotion will just fail to hold up their end of the bargain. And
Yep.
Obviously, with your service, we're going to be a lot more aware of when that happens. We'll say we'll be charitable and say very rarely someone's a habitual offender and just keeps on getting in on these things and doesn't hold up their end. Do you have any advice on selecting people for a cross promotion or a group promo and avoiding bad collaborators?
Yeah. So on StoryOrigin, as a group promo organizer, so when you create a group promotion, authors have to apply to be a part of that group promotion. They can't just put a book in it without you knowing. So the organizer actually completely controls that process of who gets to be a part of it. They have to go and approve every single book that goes into it. And you can, as an organizer, you can require that authors use one of their posted mailing lists when signing up to your group promotion. You don't have to do this as an organizer. And so some organizers don't want to do it because they don't want to put a burden on an applicant to use the posted mailing list feature on StoryOrigin. But if that's something that you're concerned about, you can require that authors use the posted mailing list feature. And then when they apply, before accepting their books into that group promotion, you can click on their posted mailing list and go to the past campaigns that they've had on StoryOrigin. You can look at the number of clicks that they've sent to newsletter swaps and the number of clicks that they have sent to group promotions where they had that posted mailing list integrated with the group promo application. So you can actually see, okay, this person has been a part of 6, group promotions and newsletter swaps and sent 0 clicks. I'm not going to accept that person because they continue to sort of, be a free rider.
That's good information to have on hand, and it makes it so that the person who's organizing has more power, so that they're able to, choose better collaborators.
And I think it actually creates a more friendly atmosphere on StoryOrigin, and makes everyone more of a team player, because organizers, rather than having to threaten people and say, hey, you didn't include this, you didn't promote this like you were supposed to, you can, I'm going to send you a nasty email. Organizers can just rely upon that the author, has a reputation to uphold, and that if they don't want to tarnish their reputation at being a part of the community on StoryOrigin, then they need to continue to be a team player, right? And to actually really work to promote the stuff that they agree to promote, right? Because that's how it works at the end of the day, is like, we're all in this together, and free riders, just it's not fair to everyone else.
Yeah, and luckily there don't seem to be very many authors who are like that.
Right.
Okay, so the site is in beta and is currently free. Do you know about how long it'll be like that, just so listeners,
Yeah. So, I have no exact timeline on when StoryOrigin will sort of come out of beta and be paid. And just to explain what beta there means, I call it in open beta, and a lot of people associate the words, beta with, oh, this is crappy software or it doesn't work well. Most of the feedback and responses that I've gotten from authors is, oh, this actually works way better than a lot of other things that I've tried. The user interface is more intuitive. I can do a lot more. There's a lot more features, all that kind of stuff. And so the reason I call it an open beta is because essentially what I've wanted to do is focus 100% of my time on building the best product, and best in class product for all of those various features that we talked about, whether it's reader magnets, universal book links, newsletter swaps, group promotions, review copies, audiobook code distribution, which no one else actually even does. So it's best in class automatically. But so my entire philosophy is that I want to build the best product first, and I can worry about pricing later. And I am thankful that I have the ability to do so. And so StoryOrigin is free for now. You can get all the features free. It will be paid at some point. I haven't set a deadline, probably sometime in the next few months here. And if you sign up now, the promise that I make is even after it becomes paid for new authors who are signing up, you will still get free service for, at least, couple months or several months. So even after it becomes paid for new signups, you'll still get to use it like you've been using it. And the reason that I do that is because, look, if you are unhappy with the way that I price things, and the way that I want to price things is going to be very affordable, because I want to focus on building the best business case for using StoryOrigin, not just trying to extract the most value that I can, but what is the ROI that I'm providing to authors that are using StoryOrigin is how I think about how to price it. Because I want it to be at least 3 times, I want you to get at least 3 times as much value out of using it as you're paying for it, right? So, and so that's sort of how I think about pricing. But ultimately, if you end up being unhappy with it, I want to provide those months of service for free, so that you can migrate away from StoryOrigin if you want to, right? Like, I'm not going to try to make you feel pressured into using something just because you've been using it. I'll give you that time so that you can migrate to other services. Granted, I think if you wanted to pay for the suite of tools that StoryOrigin provides you, you will end up, paying, a lot of money to do everything that StoryOrigin does. So.
Okay, good information. And one last question from me. Have you noticed that authors, any sign of any authors, or like authors from a certain genre, signing up more for StoryOrigin? I'm going to assume that romance authors and fantasy authors are your biggest ones.
Yeah, so I mean, it's definitely mostly genre and fiction authors, right? So that's sci-fi, fantasy, romance, mystery, thriller. Those are the biggest genres, for sure, and that's because it's commercial fiction, and readers that read those genres, if a reader reads 20 sci-fi books per year, there's absolutely no way that I can produce 20 books per year. And so it's beneficial to me to be able to promote other work that authors have coming out, because it gives me content and a way to stay engaged with my readers on a weekly or monthly basis. And so doing those cross promotions is helpful to me, versus if you look at something like nonfiction. A lot of times those nonfiction books tend to be sort of an entry product into that an entry product where the author is going to upsell the reader on coaching services or courses or what have you. And so those nonfiction authors tend to be much more interested in owning those audiences and not cross promoting with other, one weight loss author isn't going to necessarily want to cross promote with another author, weight loss author, because we both have training programs that we're trying to sort of get people into after buying that book. And so it tends to make less sense for certain nonfiction genres, although there are other nonfiction genres where it makes a ton of sense still.
You mentioned audiobooks and
Yeah.
facilitating distributing the codes so that people can
Yeah.
get an audiobook in exchange, hopefully for a review. Are there any kind of best practices you're seeing? Because I know we only usually get like 25 codes if we do it through our ACX or find a way ourselves. And it's always like, how do I find people that are actually going to leave reviews to give the book a boost when you launch it?
Right. So those codes you only get in a certain number, right? With ACX, it's 100. With Findaway, it's 30. And if you pay for Findaway Plus, you can get 100. But you only have a limit. The point is, you only have a limited number of codes. You want to make sure that you're getting those in the hands of reviewers, readers, and listeners who are actually going to leave reviews, which is what those promo codes are for, right? The reason that those platforms give those codes to you is so that you can build reviews on your audiobooks. And so what StoryOrigin provides you is, when someone wants to request one of those promo codes, you say where you have who the promo code provider is, whether it's ACX or Findaway, and then you say where it's available to review. So if you're providing them with an Audible code, and it's going to be available to review on Audible and Amazon and Goodreads and BookBub, you can list all of those platforms. And then when a listener applies to get one of those promo codes, they say where they can actually leave a review. So if the listener can only leave a review on Audible, they can just check the Audible tick box. And then they are also asked to, since they say they're going to leave a review there, they also submit the link to their Audible reviewer profile. So before you approve them for before you approve them for one of those promo codes, you can actually check their Audible reviewer profile. And you can see, okay, does this person actually listen to books in my genre? And do they actually leave reviews? Because you don't want to give that promo code to someone who has listen to a lot of sweet romance novels and you're more maybe hotter or have more heat in your romance, and so you don't want to get a bad review because this is not the type of book that this listener is expecting. So you can go and you can sort of see what they've done through those profiles, whether it's on Audible, Amazon, Goodreads, BookBub, etc. And then the other thing is that StoryOrigin does is when those reviewers are approved, when they're approved for a code, StoryOrigin will you'll be able to see actually before approving them for a code if they've been approved for 10 codes in the past, and they said they were going to leave reviews on Audible for those 10 promo codes, and they only left 5 reviews. You can see before approving them on StoryOrigin, you can look at their reviewer profile and see that they only have a 50% completion rate for Audible. And so before you're approving them, okay, is this someone that's actually going to leave a review or not? And so, yeah, StoryOrigin sort of has transparency between the reviewers and the authors about, okay, what are your completion rates for leaving reviews?
That's excellent to hear. So much in the indie author biz is just like, I don't know if this is working or how well it is working. Like you said, we have to put a lot of faith in like the hocus pocus that we can tease out of the numbers that we do get. So it's good to have an additional set of data points.
Yeah.
So speaking of audiobook promotion and whatnot, somewhat recently in the news, there were some shenanigans going on where ACX was starting to ban people for poor behavior.
Yep.
So are there any audiobook promo code practices that we should avoid to avoid getting on ACX's bad side?
Yeah. So one thing, there's been a lot of conflicting theories around what it is that Audible's cracking down on, and no one's entirely sure exactly what it is, at least from what I've read. I haven't had any authors using StoryOrigin say that they've run into any trouble with Audible in distributing codes through StoryOrigin. And because at the end of the day, those promo codes are meant for reviewers. And so I think, and this is totally speculation, so, but I think if you're giving out those codes and you're actually getting reviews on those codes, you're going to probably be less likely to be cracked down on because they see that you're giving away those codes for the purpose that they were intended for. The other thing that I've seen people talk about is, you get these .co.uk codes and you get .com codes, right? So Audible has, those are the two places where you can distribute promo codes. And some authors will say, I've got UK and US codes available, and readers will just say, oh, I can do US or UK, and the author will just send them both. But what happens is, if you've got a reader in the US who created a .co.uk account just so that they can get more codes for more books, if authors run out of their .com promo codes, which is pretty frequent, then it sort of looks maybe more like promo code farming, because authors, the great thing about promo codes on Audible is you get paid for them like it's a real sale. And so you're incentivized to distribute those codes as quickly as possible and make sure that you get them all used up because you're getting paid for them. But if there are flags that make it look like you've been just farming out those codes to get paid, then yeah, that might look like suspicious activity. But with StoryOrigin, the reviewer before requesting the code says, okay, I've got a .com, I've got a .co.uk. That's the code that I want. I want a .co.uk code. And then they put in their, if they're going to leave a review on Audible, then they have to put in their .co.uk reviewer profile. And so StoryOrigin makes sure that those are matched up. And so you can be relatively sure that that person is, actually is actually in the UK and is actually, really uses that storefront.
That's interesting because I've wondered about that too. This has been going on. A lot of authors have been getting emailed that they're flagged and there's like no
Right.
recourse basically. And I
Right.
actually thought,
It's crazy.
I thought I would get one because they sent me like 5 books worth at one time because I just asked like, hey, I haven't asked for codes for like any of these, and half were for me and half were for my pen name. And I haven't been matching them. You know, I'm just like, okay, I'd take a code off the top. Here's the book. Go check it out. So I was like, they're going to get me. But I also probably only send out like a few a month. So I don't know.
Well, you know, and the other thing is, you know, some authors who haven't ever even distributed a promo code, ACX has taken away their promo codes, right? So like you have almost no idea what it is that you know they're flagging you for there if you've never even distributed a promo code. And so some of the other speculation around what that is simply that if the audiobooks are relatively shorter in length, and if they are generally lower quality, you know, lower quality narration, what have you, those are more likely to get flagged, because what they're trying to crack down on is these scammers who will essentially, you know, pay something like $50 per, you know, finished hour of audio, create a short audiobook. You know, it won't be that particularly long. They'll just, you know, be super low quality. All they're doing is they're essentially getting something that they can put up on audio as an audiobook, and their intention is never to actually sell it. It's purely to get the promo codes so that they can farm those out to people to redeem them so that they can get paid for those, like their sales. And so if your audiobook looks like that, something that would fit in that category, then you're more likely to get flagged as well. That, again, all of this is totally speculation. I don't have like any inside guy at Audible that tells me this stuff. Is just what you'll see authors talking about on forums.
Yeah, nobody has an inside guy at
Yeah.
Amazon. You were all guessing, and you know, half the time it's just a bot doing this.
Yeah.
You know, and maybe some random thing, you know, just
Yep.
happened to set it off. So it's hard to know. All right. Well, thank you for chatting with us for about an hour. Is there anything that we didn't cover that you are excited to talk about, or do you just, you know, let people know where they can find Story Origin? And we're recording in December 2019, so if you're listening now, it's free. But if you pop in there at some future date, it might not be.
So I think we did a pretty good job of covering everything. And you know, all those things that I was talking about with like being able to see like the reviewer's completion history and being able to see their reviewer profiles on where they said they were going to review and how that applies to audiobook promo codes. All those same features apply to also ebook review copies that you can distribute through StoryOrigin. And the only thing to mention there is those ebook review copies can also be, you know, pre or post publication copies. So that's just another feature that a lot of authors are looking for, and a lot of people will probably find valuable. But yeah, if people want to check it out, I'm sure you'll find something interesting. It's at StoryOriginApp.com. And my email is right there on the homepage if you just scroll down, or if you hit the contact page. If you have any questions, just shoot me an email. I'm always happy to answer. I answer every email that I get. So.
Awesome. And we will put the link in the show notes too, just in case somebody's out jogging and can't pop over there right now. But thank you, Evan, and thank you for listening, everyone. We hope you enjoyed this, where we did not talk about spending thousands of dollars on Amazon ads.
Thanks so much for having me on.
You're very welcome. And everybody listen, please visit sixfigureauthors.com with the number 6 if you want the show notes, or to leave a comment. We'll be doing some Q&A shows coming up. And we also have a brand new Facebook group that is exclusive just for listeners of the show. You have to answer a very hard trivia question about beards if you want to get in. And I'll put the link to that also in the show notes. Thank you, everyone. Have a great week.
Goodbye.
So long, everybody.